I'm going to speak today is Alan McCullough, a North Bennington native, who has gone on to do a lot of great stuff in the theater, both on stage and on screen. Interesting fact, he also got a hole-in-one here at the Country Club when he was watching. So, with that brief but powerful introduction, I give you Alan McCullough.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's nice to be here. I'm here wearing, or will be wearing, two hats. One to talk about the Park McCullough House in North Bennington, of which I am a namesake, and also Living Room Theatre, which is of which I am a founding member with my wife, Randall and Zinn, who could not be here today. Because our house is currently full of actors who are living with us doing our current production, Lucy's Wedding, which is running this weekend through next Sunday, the 28th. I'm going to talk first about Living Room Theatre, just to let you know what that is, and then I'll talk a little bit about Park McCullough and how they sort of they dovetail together. Living Room Theatre began as an anniversary gift from my wife to me and me to my wife. We had a big anniversary coming up. We're both theater professionals. We've worked in theater all over the country, on film and television, Hollywood. My wife is a movement consultant, choreographer, director. I have been primarily an actor. We've done all kinds of stuff. And at a certain point, we had this anniversary coming up. We thought, well, we could have a big party, spend a lot of money and invite a lot of people and have a big dinner, and it would be over. Or we could do a play. Let's do a play. We could invite some people, actors we know in New York. We're winter-based in New York, summer-based here. Let's bring up the people we want to work with and do a play we want to do. And so we thought, okay, we've always wanted to do some good Chekhov. We love Anton Chekhov, who's a great Russian writer, who writes wonderful plays about how silly people are. And they're heartbreaking and they're funny. And they're often done badly. Because people don't understand that there's humor in humanity. And so we did this first play in our house. We invited 8 people, 8 actors. They lived with us. We have a 5-bedroom house in North Bennington. We rehearsed a little bit in New York. We rehearsed up here. The first act was outdoors as written in the play. And the first act takes place outdoors. So we put it outdoors in our garden. Sally can tell you all about that. The second act is outdoors. We put it in a different place outdoors. And then act 3 and 4 were in our living room, which is where the title Living Room Theatre comes from. This is a photograph from that production. Our living room happens to have been built in the 1720s, so it sort of fit with the Chekhov dacha, summer dacha. The wonderful Kevin McGuire, Christine Decker, who works a lot at Old Castle and is a spectacular actor, and Ken Foreman, who's an old friend of mine who's been in almost everything we've ever done. By the end of that 10 days or 2 weeks that we did that, we were absolutely exhausted. We would rehearse all day, do the play at night, and then we would sit around and drink and party and play games and talk, and we didn't sleep very much. And everyone was saying, what are you going to do next year? And we all said, we're not doing anything next year. We're exhausted. But next year came around and we came back and we did another and another, and we're now in year 8. Excuse me. And my question is, how many of you here have ever heard of us, Living Room Theatre? Okay. How many of you have been to see us? Okay. So the first thing you'll know about the organization is that our advertising and outreach budget is like that. And we're not reaching out to you people. We wanted to do that. We go about theater in a very particular way. We try to dive really deep into the play in rehearsal and really taking things apart and taking time with putting it back together. A lot of summer theater, a lot of what it used to be called summer stock, which doesn't really exist anymore. There's no time. There's never any time. You've got to just keep moving. You've got to learn the lines and get out and figure out what the costume is, get out and do it. You don't have time to rehearse. You don't have time to really delve deep. We have tried, and I think pretty successfully, managed to really take our time. And as a result, we've only done usually one play a season, usually 2 or 3 weeks. This year it's only 2 weeks because Park McCullough had more weddings in the barn than usual this year, which was great for Park McCullough. It was not so good for Living Room Theatre. But we eventually moved, in our second season, we moved out of our living room and moved over to the Carriage Barn at Park McCullough because it was sitting there in August and the end of July, and the weddings weren't happening. And that has allowed us a greater flexibility in staging. And that facility, how many of you know the Carriage Barn in North Bennington? Been inside it? It's fabulous and full of different possibilities for us. We move locations. We've had plays with 4 different sets for one play and taken you to each set, some inside, some outside. People have really responded to that in a really, really positive way. And it makes the play both active and sort of a treasure hunt, sort of in an interesting way. We've done a lot of checkup. We've done a lot of modern stuff. We've done new plays that people have never heard of, which are always hard to sell because name recognition is critical. And you know, people say, I don't know what Lucy's Wedding is. Why should I go? All I can tell you is it's a good play and it's funny, et cetera, et cetera. Theater is hard, marketing is hard, selling, you know, the summer is busy here, there's a lot of culture. The people who come to us tell us that they think of us favorably in comparison to almost everything around that they go to see it. You name it, theater there, theater there, theater there, and there's a lot up here in the summertime. And some of it's really, really good. We've grown our audience from, you know, I think we had 70 people the first season. That first play, we had a total of 70 people. Last year we had like 1,000 people came over the course of 3 weeks. So, you know, we take pride in creativity with nothing. We operate on a budget of what's in our closet. What can we borrow? What can we find? We've brought plays. This was a production of Adam and Evie, which is a modern play by a guy named Charles Mee. A fantastic piece that my wife directed. She teaches at Circle in the Square acting program, graduate acting program in the city. They did it as a senior project. We brought that whole cast of 12 kids this age, and they lived in our house for 2.5 weeks, and let me tell you, that was no cakewalk. We've also taken plays from here back to New York. This is a production of Men of Tortuga, which is a wonderful, funny, dark, really political play that we did here first and then took into the city to great response. An outdoor setting for Uncle Vanya, which was our second production. Again, Ketan McGuire, who was in our first couple of things. The barn, you know, can become lots of crazy things. I have notes. I should use them. The first few years, we really didn't invite any critics for reasons that are not terribly important, except for Sally and Bob, who are great friends of the theater and have been great supporters right from the beginning. Last year, we sort of thought, okay, we need to begin to expand what people are knowing about us in print in whatever way we can. So we invited a few of the what we know of as critics around here. We ended up being nominated for the Berkshire Theater Critics Award, which are known as the Berkeys, which Sally is one of the nominating critics. We were nominated in multiple categories, it turned out. We didn't know that. But we were a finalist for Best Ensemble for our production of Three Sisters last year, which we were really, really proud of. And that was great validation and exciting. But we're always struggling with how do we get the word out? How do we, you know, mail, email, advertising, what works? And we're, you know, as an organization, we're still struggling with that. So that's Living Room Theatre. Park McCullough House is, I'm on the board, I'm the chairman of the board currently of Park McCullough House. House, which is something I told myself I would never do. Now it's been 6 or 8 or 9 years, and I'm here, I still am. So how many of you don't know about Park McCullough House? You guys don't know about it. Well, you should go this afternoon because it's open and it's a fantastic tour. What's important about Park McCullough House, built in 1865, gold rush money that came back to Vermont. My forebears went out there as lawyers, made 7 fortunes, lost 6, brought that last one back, built this huge summer home in North Bennington. It sat on a farm that was 600 acres with this astonishing carriage barn, which is right next door. In 1969, my grandfather died, left it to my father, who thought, well, I'm not paying taxes on this thing. I've always hated this house. I'm going to tear it down. And some friends got together and said, wait a minute, John, just hold your horses. Just give us the house. We'll figure out what to do with it. And he said, okay. And he gave the Park McCullough Association, which didn't exist, the house with everything in it. Original to the family from 1865 through the last living descendant who was there until 1966. Every book, every painting, every piece of furniture, every rug, every chamber pot. We have 36 chamber pots still on the 3rd floor. It's all original, which is really rare in a historic house. Most historic houses have had a turnover at some point where the family moved out. You know, Robert Frost moved away, he took his stuff with him, and whoever it was. And then you come back as a century later and try to recreate it. This house is all there. So for that reason, and the fact that most of these Victorian houses, were not expected to live 150 years. Most of them burned down before they were 100 years old. I think it's one of New England's most important houses. I've had a lot of people who know this stuff tell me that. And we're really, really proud of both what it is and how it's kept. We're an entirely volunteer organization. The board, in the last 10 years, we've had no paid staff for 10 years. We've turned ourselves around financially from a very deep hole. We're in the black, we've got money in the bank, we pay our bills early, before on time, and our visitor numbers have been growing steadily year over year for the past like 6-7 years. All kinds of cultural events happening there, music in the barn, theater, stuff happening all the time. It's in the Carriage Barn is a great venue for corporate events, weddings, you name it, it can handle it. That's what I have to tell you. Except that Park McCullough also struggles with this thing. So North Bennington is right off the main route, which is Route 7, or 7A. And people, Park McCullough struggles with trying to find its audience, let people know where we are, who we are, what we are. And it's become clear to me how organizationally in Bennington, in Manchester, and wherever, all of these little organizations, particularly about history is hard. History is a hard sell. Need to tie together. The Bennington Museum was terrific, has been terrific to us for the past bunch of years, and we've been turning people back to them. The things that have gone on there have been fantastic. So we're always looking for ideas, help, friends, whatever it is anybody has. And so,
in regard to your marketing, I'm a firm believer in kind of what you're doing now, which is that networking. And you know, with organizations like us, the chamber, anybody that kind of spreads the word for you. But I'll have to admit, when I got that Lucy's wedding card in the mail, I'm thinking, who's Lucy? Did I get invited to a wedding? I mean, it took me a while to figure that out.
Good. But you paid attention to it.
I did just, I'm thinking, wait a minute, who's Lucy?
Cousin Lucy, yeah.
Should I be going?
That's the poster and the card. was that.
It's
And
like
you turn
an
it over and it say,
invitation.
you're cordially invited to a brief to Lucy's wedding, a brief engagement not to be missed. And I'm thrilled. Our son Angus did this poster.
Good
And he does
job.
all the posters that we've done. But I'm glad it made you think.
Yeah, yeah, and maybe hesitate and look at it a while and question who Lucy was.
Yeah.
Why I didn't know her.
That's good.
Well, I want to say that we've been going to Living Room Theatre since it opened, and we just did an interview with the cast, and when we walked into the house, we said, oh yeah, now they're going to start doing checkup, because that's what, anyway, it's wonderful. They do have a website, and I do think that everybody who follows more theater talk could listen in, and if you want to hear a wonderful discussion of the play before you go see it, from the cast members, go to moretheatertalk.wordpress.com. But I just want to tell you that the quality of all of the productions that we've seen there has been outstanding. And it's so intimate and so wonderful.
It is the barn is a really, and our living room is even more intimate, but a really close, joyous way to watch theater. You really see a lot. People have said they felt like they were part of the family, in the family. And this is a family play. This is a play about a Midwestern matriarchy gone awry. It's a play about women, and written by a woman, directed by a woman. And it is a real roller coaster of humor and pathos, and as life is. I mean, life is full of, terrible things that we have to laugh at because they're so terrible. What else can you do? And it's dealing with family, and family is always complicated. There's no way around that. At least my family is really complicated. I don't know yours. But come and enjoy it. It's really wonderful. We run this weekend. We're fully air conditioned in the Carriage Barn. Wednesday through Sunday afternoons. Saturday and Sundays at 2. Evenings are at 7:30. Tickets are suggested donation of $30, which is generally less than, much less than many of the theater companies around here are charging.
Doug, you
Yeah, there used to be condos on the property up there. Are they still around?
The Highland Hall Farmhouse,
Yeah.
which was the first house on that property, was turned into condos. They are currently owned by 3 different people, I think. But yes, they're still operating as condos. And they, actually they don't. The garden in front of that house, which was where my grandfather lived, is now managed by the Fund for North Bennington, I think. And the land, the 600-acre property, which was the Hall Farm. My sister, I have 3 sisters, and I inherited from my father. I bought from my father, I should say correctly. And we spent 25 years trying to figure out how to keep a dairy operation going in a non-dairy location, really. And finally realized that wasn't going to happen, and then spent years trying to figure out how to give it all away, which is basically what we did. You may have read the book that I wrote about it. It's called How I Turned $1 Million in Real Estate into $25 in Cash. It's true, unfortunately. But that most of that property is now in land trust, in perpetuity. And the Mile Round Woods is a destination walk, which is absolutely spectacular and beautiful. The story of that is that Trenner Park, my great-great-great-grandfather, who made all the money in California and built the big house, had a nervous breakdown. He did more in his lifetime. This man did absolutely astonishing things. It's scary to read the things that he did. But he had a nervous breakdown, and his cure, and nobody talked about it like that. There was no such thing as a nervous breakdown. But to solve his situation, he decided that he was going to cut a path through the woods, which he did with an axe and a saw. And made it exactly 1 mile around. And I don't know how long it took him, but it's still there, and then it became a road, and it is a beautiful walking situation.
It has a beautiful view of Hoosick Falls.
Beautiful view up on the ledge there. It's just absolutely gorgeous looking up the valley. Yeah.
Was President Benjamin Harrison was when he was here to dedicate the monument?
Correct.
But is he a family member? Or?
He was not. He came as a guest. He stayed in the house. They renovated the dining room. They made an addition onto the dining room so that they could fit a table long enough to seat 22 people, bless you, for that dinner. But he came as a dignitary to inaugurate the monument, which the family was involved in the design and building of the monument. Sir.
You said earlier that your board, trustees, whatever,
Yep.
has dug yourself out of a hole,
Yep.
and you're in the black now and so forth, but I would imagine that the care and upkeep of that property is pretty ridiculous as far as
Yep.
just maintaining that house and grounds.
Yep.
Where's your funding coming from?
Weddings are our sort of major cash cow, and wedding business has grown every year for the past 6 years. We tend to undercharge the other local venues. To my mind, I think we should be charging twice what we charge, and we may get there. That's our major source. Fundraising is our second source. Visitation is way down on the list. But those are our major things.
Does your group request funds from the local municipalities?
Not as effectively as we should. This is one of the things, that as a 5-member board, myself, my wife Randall Zinn, Chris Maxey, Brandy Lesser, and Alyssa Berry. And 3 of those people, I'd like to point out, are 30 years old or younger, which is fantastic. But we have been a working board for 10 years, and most of our time is spent just trying to, keep all the balls in the air. So things like municipal funding get dropped, get missed, deadlines get missed because we can't keep up with all of it. But just as a point of information, we painted 3 sides of the house, of the 4 sides, in the last 5 or so years. Each side, take a guess for paint. 3 colors.
10,000 aside.
Cost or
Cost.
quantity?
One would
Oh, I would say probably around $75,000 or $80,000.
30,000 aside, basically. Wow. And some of that's just because it's so vast. But then it's 3-color trim work, which was designed to be painted in Victorian style in 3 colors. Crazy.
And were those the original colors?
Those we think we scraped back through many coats of paint, and we think that's pretty close to original. When I was a kid, my great aunt lived there. I was terrified of the place. I wouldn't go in it. It was all white with green shutters for many years. But the original Victorian houses were very colorful, very ornate. And the trim work, the woodwork is just like crazy. But beautiful. So yeah, it's stuff like that is. I will say that I think the organization is getting to a point where we may be in the position sometime soon to bring back on a full-time someone to be really in charge of all the things, and let the board go back to being a board and doing the things the board should do, like raise money, find money, generate.
Great, well, thanks very much.
Thank you all.